and kick this off the way I always do. Okay, so sit back, stay on mute, and just enjoy the show. Okay. The saga begins. We got to build our way to freedom. The fiat lords are coming in their numbers and their legions. We ain't scared. We're prepared. And here's the main reason. We are sovereign, and Bitcoin is our beacon. There's this concept called defense in depth. Building layers on Bitcoin will add to its strengths. Protect your privacy, protect your loot. Do your research or get wrecked is true. Sovryn is the place where you can long Bitcoin. You want to stack more sats? Well, you got to deploy. You can leverage trade if you're bullish that way, or LP single-sided if you want to play it safe. High demand for Tether. There's incentive to lens like 17% or something to that effect. Englandia spits nothing but alpha. We got 2 new proposals. Let's discuss the outcome. All right, guys. Sorry for the slip up, but thank you for joining us here.
Yay!
Thank you. Cheers. Bring us here.
Yay!
Thank you. Cheers.
Rapping good.
All right, cool. Thank you for sharing this mission. The rules are, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you would like to speak, please toggle the mute button back and forth to get our attention. If that doesn't work, feel free to politely jump into the conversation. It's an open forum. Before we go through the agenda, would anyone like to introduce themselves and say hello? Can you say that again? Okay, can't hear you that well, but welcome either way. So let's get started with the governance report with Iago. Are you there, Iago? Can't hear you.
Hello?
Okay, here you are.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, Sovereigns, hello. So I'd like to start with the last community call that we had and a quick recap. We discussed a bunch of things that were getting very, very close. In particular, we spoke about the bridges. We spoke about money on chain. We spoke about Babelfish. And then we also mentioned that we were basically ready to go and take SOV tokens onto the Ethereum network and have them start trading on a different platform, which is Uniswap. So a large number of people started reaching out to us and saying why the SOV token is highly desirable. It's growing in terms of interest. There's a larger and larger body of people who are becoming interested and just learning about the project. As people learn about the project, they want to start using it. And in particular, as more and more interest grows around Sovryn and the SOV token, more and more people want to take a position in SOV. Right now, we have a strategic weapon in the form of an exclusive trading pair that exists only on our platform. And everything seems to be going up and to the right. All numbers are increasing. Why go onto Uniswap now? And what was even more surprising is a lot of these people were people who had previously, been pushing us to try and go. It's exciting to see those people convert into long-term thinkers. And it was more exciting for the community to come give feedback on what was effectively a plan that had emerged from the core team. And so the core team listened and decided to go open this topic up on Twitter. It was opened up by a bunch of people. On the forums, it was opened by a bunch of people. And what eventually ended up looking like the consensus was that we can wait. Let's see what happens. And so we waited. And what happened was growth accelerated. Sovryn trading volumes doubled. The SOV token price, trading volumes, and the price doubled. The system started seeing more and more activity, hundreds of new users every single day. And recently as hundreds of new users every single day. And recently, as more and more liquidity has become available, it was also possible to create, to raise the limits which currently exist on lending and borrowing and margin trades to $100,000. And so we start to see more and more activity on margin trading as well. And right now, the platform is doing every 24 hours something between $8 and $10 million in transaction volume, which is kind of phenomenal for a system which is very, very early. So I think this is a very powerful, teachable moment for everyone. Learning to make decisions as a community, and the fact that we have such an engaged community that is willing to provide feedback is an incredible strength. So what I've been doing recently is talking to the different people, get to know each other more, and so the speed of development, the communications is accelerating as well. But what I've done is I've gone and spoken to a number of these different people. Stefan has been working on this as well, and compiled what looks like the emerging roadmap. And so next week, I plan to have at least one and possibly two sort of open calls to discuss what appears to be the emerging roadmap, to give everyone who's working on the project and involved in the project greater visibility into the different pieces that are happening, and also to provide more of an opportunity for the community to give feedback. We also, during that call, spoke about money on chain, the stablecoin, and the stablecoin governance system being introduced into Sovryn and Babelfish. Both of these projects are driving a huge amount. Those SIPs are going to be ready to be voted on about half an hour after the close of this call. And so I'd encourage everyone who has gone through the documentation to vote, and everyone who hasn't to go do your own research, come to a conclusion, and decide on your vision for how we should move forward. But I think the really exciting thing here is we're starting to grow an ecosystem, and what we're going to have the ability to introduce soon is the Origins platform, which is basically the launchpad platform, adding a whole new set of functionality to Sovryn. And so we'll open this up to some questions, but before we do that, I want to give a very quick summary of where we are going and so what I'm seeing. So the progress in the project is of where we are going and so what I'm seeing. So the progress in the project is accelerating substantially over the last few weeks. We have been in a situation where I would define it as we're building out the critical infrastructure, which is going to allow more advanced products to be built, allow connectivity to other sources of liquidity and assets like Ethereum, Bitcoin, and a lot of that critical infrastructure, which also includes analytics, improved UI, is really starting to come together. And we've been laying down a huge amount of pipe. There is now starting to be liquidity being pushed through those pipes. And I believe that we are extremely close to an inflection point in terms of the critical infrastructure will be there, the bridges will be there, the ability for liquidity to flow will be there. And from that point, metric. And I think this is probably going to happen over the course, by the end of next sprint, I think we'll start to see this happen. So I think the beast is stirring and is about to awaken in a very dramatic fashion. And I think it's great that the money on chain and Babel SIPs are happening now, because I think that they speak to the potential of the project and where this is going. And so, frankly, I don't think I've been more excited about Sovryn than I am at this point, and I am I'm really giddy to see how things play out over the next 2-3 weeks. What I'd like to do, have the SIP 17 and SIP 18 for money on chain and for Babelfish. I'd like to, before we get into the broader context and updates, just open it up to the broader context and updates. Just open it up for a few minutes for questions. If anyone I believe the Money and Chain and Babelfish teams are both here, and if anyone has any questions or issues that they'd like to raise with regards to those things, now is a good time.
Whipper, you have to ask a question.
Hey guys, what's happening? I was just waiting to see if anyone else was going to ask something.
They're all waiting for you, man.
Yago, are these questions just related to those SIPs, or can we ask anything?
I think you can ask anything.
Okay, fine. Yago, I'm really curious if we can get like a timeline or close to with regards to the bridges and maybe a fast out BTC. I'm really curious if we can get like a timeline or close to with regards to the bridges and maybe a fast out BTC. I'm concerned overall about just getting more liquidity onto Sovryn. I'm just curious how things are working in the background with regards to the bridges to Binance Chain as well as Ethereum.
I think that's a great question. I'm not going to answer it because I think Aurora is going to cover it in a moment. But I think when I'm talking about basic infrastructure, that's a very big piece of it. What I also just mentioned is, there is no roadmap in the way that maybe a regular company would be able to schedule releases because the work happens differently. Yeah, I mean, I'll let Aurora cover it, and you'll get a sense of how close we are.
Okay, cool. Remind me how many transactions per second the RSK network can actually handle. I'm just curious how we will fare out against sort of gas prices once we start to see a big flow of liquidity start to come on, not only to Sovryn, but just RSK in general.
So it's not so simple. Transaction sizes vary to a great extent on the basis of so I think you need to think about it as in terms of gas use, right? So there's no more complicated smart contract interactions consume more gas, and as a result, take a larger part of any given block. I don't think we're going to be hitting our limits before we have the roll-up ready. So right now, I don't think we have particular reason to be extremely concerned about that. And if it did become a concern, that would be an amazing situation to be in, because we will have the roll-up.
Thanks, Yago.
I can give you a quick impression. If you would assume that most of the transactions sent are simple transactions and not smart contract calls, we would face approximately 10 transactions per second, I would say. And if you consider that probably there are some larger transactions among them, then maybe the number drops to like 7. Just to give you these are not precise numbers, just to give you a feeling for what we are facing.
Thank you.
Hello guys, this is Nevis. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I will just leave some thoughts regarding that we have around Babelfish and SIP18. I don't think we should boil down and discuss a lot of things because it was already discussed and it's going to be reflected in voting. One thing that I believe that is very important to Sovryn is I know that you guys are working on it. It's a lot of work to come up with some solution. But in UI, knowing the voting power, the total voting power, having some information like this will help us make better decisions in the general sense. Not just the total voting power.
May I answer to that, Yago?
I'm interested to hear what types of information he's requested.
The total voting power. If you already answered, sorry, I was a little bit late.
Okay,
Sure.
calculations have now been completed, and we've been able to provide points for all of the circulating tokens, all of the issued tokens, and derived from that are the endpoints for all of the different token distributions, genesis, origins, and then public sale tokens, that they will be able to be tracked with who's staking and voting. So that is all coming in a very, very soon period. The work is done and needs to be moved over into the UI, and you will begin seeing that in the dApp very soon.
Okay, thank you. I know it looks a little bit repetitive in answer those questions, but I guess it's just important to highlight that we can maybe not making good decisions in voting whenever we don't have this type of information. But I totally understand it's part of the process. I think the second part is that it feels like to me, and I'm a not technical person at all, or even a very let's say people are very let's say people are more knowledgeable about it. But I guess we are becoming also a launching pad platform, which is great, right? But if that's the case, or if I'm misunderstood, please correct me. But if we're becoming a launching pad, we should have like launching pad rules, right? Or a structure of how new projects that nothing to do with BCW or anything like that. But if somebody else comes with an idea and wants to launch through Sovryn, that might be a good thing to start a SIP and try to figure out what's the structure that we would like to have.
I totally agree, and I personally plan to try and put together something more standardized, which I would like to propose to the community. My thinking around this is I'd like to see a few of these happen, get a sense of what the concerns are, what the thoughts are, what the variability between.
Thanks.
Guys, it's Whipper again. I'm sorry to jump in, but is that the direction that we're headed, like sort of like a launch pad, or do we eventually plan to open Sovryn up in a decentralized way where you can add any token that you want, similar to like a Uniswap?
To my mind, I think we're moving towards doing both things. And the reason is that there's value to both. And as a financial operating system, as an open financial OS, you want to have those various capabilities. So even a launchpad, right, looks different from an AMM launch. It could be curated, but even if it's not curated, it looks different. It could be that the project wants to accumulate some funds rather than put everything into an AMM. It could be that there's a necessity to accumulate funds just to provide the initial liquidity, which is part of the reason that launchpads exist in DeFi at all. So I see the two as complementary, and you probably want to have both, and luckily we do. Because
Any other questions? All right, let's actually move on to Aurora with some of the dev updates.
Hey, thanks. Before I start with the dev updates, I would just very quickly like to introduce some of our newcomers on the development team. There's Max, our new head of Shadow, and therefore leading the efforts on our backend services like FastBTC or the Sovryn nodes. Want to quickly say hi, Max?
Yep, sure. Hello, everybody. Despite my name, I'm not actually a villain, unless you're probably in the field world, in which I probably am. So, but be glad to join the Sovryn cause and be working on the kind of with the rest of the devs on the project. So, exciting times.
Thanks, Max. And then also on the Shadow team, we have two more new additions especially on the DevOps side, which are Colossus and Roberto da Costa. You guys quickly want to say hi? No? Okay. Not? Nobody forcing you to speak here. Not? Nobody forcing you to speak here. And then we have Rain Sinclair joining the Solidity team. Are you here, Rain?
Yeah, hi, Aurora, thanks. Yeah, hello, people. I recently joined Sovryn and I was always fascinated with DeFi, so excited to have a more enriching experience in this field. Thanks.
Thanks, Rain. If there is any DevI who was not yet introduced to the community and would like to introduce himself, feel free to do so. I think we might have forgotten to introduce new devs at one or the other call.
Sorry, Aurora, did you just say Colossus there?
Yeah, I said Colossus earlier.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. I am apparently Colossus. Great, yeah. Great to be part of the team. Yeah.
Earlier.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. I am apparently Colossus. Great, yeah. Great to be part of the team. Yeah, enjoyed it so far. Worked in a couple of I guess digital currency bits, and yeah, very interested like what Sovryn's doing, and yeah, hopefully can get some good bits done.
Right, thanks, Colossus. Good, then let's get started with the dev update. So there were already questions about the bridge. So our ETH bridge is updated now on testnet, and it allows for native ETH transfer and is connected, directly integrated with an aggregator. So this aggregator is going to be used to unify all of the ETH tokens which are entering our system to a single coin. This means that all of the native ETH or any other bridges which we might have in the future would all become aggregated in a single token to concentrate the liquidity on the market. The Babelfish team just very quickly provided a simple version of an aggregator to use as a first step, which will then be incorporated into the Babelfish protocol. These new updates of the ETH bridge do also come with some changes of the fee structure, allowing us to overcome some of the limitations we had with the original version, where the fees would be set in an absolute amount, and now we can set them per token, per currency, and with a base and variable value. This bridge is obviously the requirement for our ETH pool launch, which we are expecting to have soon. I do not want to name any final dates now, else just to make sure I'm not disappointing people later if we cannot meet them. So much about the bridges. Then we've made a progress with liquidity mining, the smart contract-based liquidity mining, not the liquidity mining program you're currently witnessing. The smart contract-based liquidity mining system is already on testnet. It allows you to earn liquidity mining rewards by depositing your liquidity pool tokens into the liquidity mining pool. And as long as the tokens are there, they are accumulating rewards. This means that existing liquidity providers need to manually deposit their tokens into the liquidity mining pool so they start earning rewards. The system will have a notification for you to tell you it's done automatically. So in the future, it will not be necessary to manually deposit any tokens in additional pools, but all will be automatically done by the system for you. We were also working on oracles for our V1 pools. You might remember that we've been talking about margin trading for SOV. I think it was not the last community call, but the one before that. And we were saying that in order for us to be able to do that, we would need oracles, but that we needed to postpone them in favor of liquidity mining. But now we were able to work on them simultaneously after all, thanks to Rain. And they are almost done. These oracles are going to provide us with exponentially moving averages of the price, which is more manipulation resistant than using current prices, obviously. And because the exponential moving average has a couple of configurations, well, mostly one configuration, but still, we are going to monitor the pricing for a while to see and tweak the configuration a bit until we're happy with it. And then we will finally be able to allow margin trading on V1 pools.
Aurora, may I just jump in for a sec? Just want to
Sure.
emphasize what this means. It means that Sovryn is about to launch its own Oracle system, which will mean that it becomes not reliant for almost anything on external oracles. It means that Sovryn will be able to provide its own Oracle, which other projects will be able to use. And it will mean that basically any single asset that we introduce into the system will be able to use for entirely decentralized without the need for external oracles. I think it's an extremely powerful tool.
Exactly. Thanks, Jago, for pointing this out. Yes, so these are the biggest news. Then we are currently preparing a testnet deployment of the improved affiliate system and the trading rebates. So we should be able to turn these on soon, and I'm going to explain it to you a bit better at the time where we actually turn it on. We distributed liquidity mining rewards. So those of you who had tokens in the RBTC and USDT pools received vesting contracts. You can see them in your portfolio section. And the liquidity mining rewards for the RBTC SOV pools will be processed shortly. We were also working on our numbers, and some of you might have seen in the announcement that we were sharing some numbers about the SOV supply, the circulating SOV supply, which should give us all better insight into what's happening with our token. And apart from that, it's the usual ongoing improvements of the system, like fast BTC, Sovryn nodes, documentation, testing. There's always a lot of different things going on, which I'm not able to list all of the things we're working on in a single call. So I'm going to leave it at that. Are there any questions so far?
Hi, Aurora. It's Whipper. Just curious about this Oracle party, like a chain link of some sort.
We're building it out. It is integrated into the V1 pools directly, and it's working quite similar to how Uniswap is tracking the cumulative prices on their contracts, just that Uniswap is providing these cumulative prices for others, so others can build oracles on top of them, and we are actually directly computing the exponential moving average because it saves a lot of gas and it makes the whole thing much cheaper. So we are tracking the cumulative price as well as the exponential moving average on our contracts.
And can you briefly just explain this concept of like ETH being aggregated into one token on the ETH bridges? I wasn't too clear about how that works. Is that just like a technical explanation, or like is that like a difference that the user will literally see themselves?
It's mostly a technical thing for the user. It should not mean any complications. It means that if you're having these different ETH tokens, we're depositing them into one pool. It's being done automatic. As soon as they come over the bridge, they're being deposited in that pool. And that pool is just locking the ETH tokens and minting the same amount of aggregated tokens. And then when the user wants to withdraw the ETH, let's say to the ETH chain, then he would send these ETH back to the aggregator. The aggregator would then burn these aggregated tokens and pay out sends the tokens to the bridge on behalf of the user, so the user does not have any additional action. But I'm not sure that this is the implementation of the first aggregator we're having now. We would need to ask Dark Matter. I'm not sure if he's on the call. But the contract is upgradable, and this is something which we're going to have as soon as possible. So for the user, it should be no difference.
Right. So the idea is that this simplifies things quite substantially for the users. So what we're seeing across DeFi is a complete fragmentation of all of the assets. So if you look at, ETH, you've got wrapped ETH and LETH and various different kinds of ETH, even just on Ethereum. And then as you go on to different second layer things, then you've got even more tokens, and you've got like 8 different versions of USDT on Binance Smart Chain. And each of those goes into a separate pool, which needs liquidity, and they even just on Ethereum. And then as you go on to different second layer things, then you've got even more tokens, and you've got like 8 different versions of USDT on Binance Smart Chain. And each of those goes into a separate pool, which needs liquidity, and they are no longer fungible. And so what we're doing is cleaning all of this up, and the Babelfish project is an extremely important part of that, allowing all assets to be aggregated under the asset rather than broken up into the fragments of the different types of tokens representing that asset. So on Sovryn, you just have ETH S, you just have USDT S, or you probably wouldn't even see USDT because the actual asset is USD. You'd only have one version of every single asset in deep liquidity for that asset, and much more simplicity for the average user.
Is that specific to Sovryn, or once that token is on the RSK network, it could be pretty much used anywhere? Like, in other words, like this version of ETH that you said -S
can be used anywhere.
Okay.
So it's like a basket currency.
To follow up on that, if I may, I think it's beautiful, this idea or this concept to be lending the assets on AAE and all these other platforms, and then use that to build an insurance fund. And a long timeline, we're saying we're placing all of these different stable coins, broken up fragmentations, and then we're building the insurance, sending them out. But then on a macro, aren't we kind of expecting them to become useless, or is that too far into what would happen if they become useless? Then the foundation for lending them away. And what about the insurance fund? But maybe I'm thinking too far ahead.
Simple answer: if they become useless, then you don't need the insurance pool, because the only reason they became useless was because the sub-aggregate components were all effectively fungible and identical, at least on a non-technical level. So it's very much going to depend on a per asset basis. But the basic principle of aggregation, I think, stands. And then how you manage the potential risks that might be associated with the aggregation change from asset to asset.
Nice.
Hey, that's Denevs again. Amazing. I thought it was just stablecoins and having wrapping up all the ETH and all the other Sovryn platform, or they will have their own platform to operate.
So let's talk about what it means to be inside of Sovryn. So there's 2 ways to be thinking about what's inside of Sovryn. One of them is the right way and one of them is the wrong way. The right way to be thinking about what is inside of Sovryn is anything which is controlled by the Bitocracy is inside the Sovryn protocol. The wrong way to be thinking about what's inside of Sovryn is what's on the Sovryn app. So Babelfish will not, or as I understand it, will not be controlled by sovereign bureaucracy, and therefore it would be a separate sister protocol or a partner protocol. However, the approach with Sovryn.app front end is that all of these different projects can be deeply integrated with Sovryn.app front end is that all of these different projects can be deeply integrated, providing users with a single, like Apple-like experience. Like you basically just come and you have all of this easily consumable. And the idea there is that even the most inexperienced user should be able to use it in a few months. It's important to point out that Sovryn.app is not part of the Sovryn protocol. It's just a front end. And there are other front ends being built and through which you can access the system already. There are people who are doing this. You can also access the system directly via command line. So I think what we'll see is deep integration of the front end, at least in Sovryn.app, most likely on other front ends as well, but it won't be part of the Sovryn protocol. Front ends as well, but it won't be part of the Sovryn protocol.
That's clear. I guess I had the wrong mentality, but I still have, because that's what I was hoping to hear, and it's good that we're having this integration. I think everybody wins, right?
Cool. Roro, do you want to move on?
Let's
with other
let's move on to the
development
next.
updates? Because we do
yeah,
have
sure.
other parts of the community.
I'm already finished with my updates, and if there are
Alright.
no more questions, then I'm happy to give the word to Sue.
Okay, we have to move on for the sake of time. Zoo, are you there?
Cool. I'll bang through this then. First of all, we've got a new member of the team helping with working in the UX and UI. His name's Gilad. Gilad, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll go bang through this. So first of all, we've been finalizing the design of Babelfish, and that's now in the front end and being worked on. So that's in the works. The new margin trading, spot trading, and swap interfaces are all on testnet and ready to go live on Monday. I'm just putting a request in to push that live, so hopefully there's no pushback on that. We've been designing a new liquidity page that will hopefully address all the issues that you have, understanding what's going on, what your position is, what kind of profit you're earning, how many rewards you're earning. So that's in the work to be tested by the users soon. We've also been working on some new lend and borrow pages. So all the pages, liquidity, lend and borrow, kind of work similarly because they're all working around pools. So there's a nice consistency there, and it should make all of your lives a lot easier with understanding what is going on. We've been updating the ledger flow so that users are now able to copy their address and actually work out which address that they want to use by allowing the balance to be shown. So that should be coming out pretty soon. The new portfolio page, which will aggregate all of your data into one place so that you can easily see all the different tables, is almost finished being designed and put over to front end. We've designed a reward SOV page, and so this page is going to be very useful for you guys. This is where you'll see where all of the reward SOV that you're earning from all the different incentive programs will accumulate, and then from there you'll be able to claim it, which will then vest it on your behalf for 10 months, and then give out per month. Along with that, we've been working on the referral page, which will give you a link so that you can share it and earn SOV for getting people to come into the system and trade with us. And then in terms of the creative, we've started with the concept work for the comic book. It's all looking for the comic book. It's all looking very, very, very exciting. And we are currently generating characters for that comic world. And each one of those is a member of, like, to start off with the core team, and then we'll work out through the whole team. So that's quite fun. I think how often do you get the opportunity to make yourself into a cartoon character? Anyway, that's my update, and if anyone has any questions, I'm all ready for you.
Let's save questions for the end, just to make sure that Slider and Excel get their time.
No problem. Okay, Slider, take the step.
Hi, thanks. Slider here from Adoption. Today is actually a milestone for us, as it's pretty much 1 month since we listed SOV on Sovryn for us, as it's pretty much 1 month since we listed SOV on Sovryn. So to celebrate, we've produced a snapshot of how our growth figures stand today. And because we're Sovryn, our stats are laid out on a spaceship dashboard, of course. I've shared this in announcements, and this graphic is something we'll update and circulate periodically. If you don't want to wait for updates, you can find there's ongoing reports now in the wiki, and the team there have worked hard to collate this data. So it can be found under Sovryn, under the tab Sovryn Growth Statistics. So as mentioned previously, we've been running the ad campaign for the past month to promote the loot drops, which have now come to an end. So we've now turned that campaign over to our product promotion. So and this is really exciting for me. There's somebody making dinner.
Yeah, if anyone's unmuted and you're not muting yourself, I will mute you, and I would have to manually unmute you for you to be able to speak again. So just mute yourself, please. Thanks.
Cool. So we've turned the ad campaign over to our product promotion. It's exciting because there are lots of ways that we are actually competitive, and you'll start to see our promotional materials cropping up that shout about this. So, for instance, our lending rates are extremely competitive. I'll give you an example. So from very recent stats, in fact, just from like 1 hour ago, on the Sovryn platform, you can earn up to 25% APR for lending your USDT. Now, you can compare this to Compound, and their lending rate's 5.3%, 11% on and between 9 and 10% on the central 11% on and between 9 and 10% on the centralized lending platforms, BlockFi, Nexo, and Celsius. So on top of that, we have obviously very cheap transaction fees compared to other DeFi platforms, as you probably know. We are sort of cents, single-digit cents versus dollars. And our trading price for Bitcoin is consistently really competitive, which means plenty of opportunities for arbitrage trading, if that's your thing. If you haven't checked out the latest video about how to make crypto with your crypto, then I do recommend that you go over to YouTube, to our channel there, Sovryn BTC, where you can educate yourself on how to super stack and hyper hodl in the latest video from Eden, where he explains that very well. So finally, for those of you who don't already know, we are increasing the number of channels that we're present on. We have an Instagram account, BTC, and we're also on Reddit at r/Sovryn. So please, show these channels some love, follow us, and comment where you see fit. And that's it for me. Everything.
Awesome. Cheers. Thanks, Slider. Exiled.
Yeah, so my updates are, as usual, around the Sovryn Hackathon. So the public announcement will be made next Monday. We've shifted the dates to start later because of all the work that's been going on. Had my hands full. So the Sovryn Hackathon will be starting on 4th of June, concurrent with Bitcoin Miami. And the first 3 days will be a virtual conference. And as of June 4th, all the bounties that we're offering will be available for people to go through and start submitting projects for. These sponsors is the wrong word. The confirmed partners that we have that will be adding additional bounties to the 500K in bounties and grants that we'll be doing include the Akash Network, API 3, Stacks, and Munib from Stacks will be participating as a judge in the hackathon. ENS will also be participating with bounties for integrations with ENS. And Interlay.io from Alexei Zamyatin, who will be judging bounties for RSK and Polka Starter integrations. There's numerous other partners that we're in negotiation with that will be announced between the initial announcement and the beginning of the hackathon. There will also be, after the public announcement on Monday, there will be a type form for everybody to sign up on. They can apply to hack. Be a type form for everybody to sign up on. They can apply to hack, can apply to speak, can apply to judge, and also apply to submit partner bounties for the hackathon. The next thing I want to talk about is the issue with ESOB and the Claros challenge that came up yesterday. The challenge will end in approximately 7 hours. It was made as a result of miscommunication inside of our team about what was going on with building the ETH bridge. The ESV token is actually what we'll be seeing on Ethereum and is necessary for us to be bridging over there. I don't anticipate there'll be any issues with that because the evidence is clear that the token was documented, why it was created. Also, we'll be launching the ETH bridge on testing on testnet sometime soon, either or the reviews, the best reviews for the testnet. And we also have a new team member on the wiki, Johnny Pickles, who's working together with Betsy Braddock on the charts that you've seen appearing on the wiki. And this is becoming a part of a new circle of numerics, which we've been hiring into for data science, as Yago mentioned earlier. So if anybody out there in the community has MySQL skills, there's a job, and a whole list of other skills. There's a job description for a team lead that is on our wiki. And of course, we're open to other suggestions from people who think that they could fit into our data science team. And that's it for me. Give it over to you, Ingmar.
All right. Just some quick business. All right. Just some quick business development updates. I've been prioritizing getting partners for the upcoming hackathon, most of which Exiled Surfer has already mentioned. We have signed an MOU in partnership with an Oracle provider, and we'll be making an announcement within the next few days. We're still finalizing our agreement with a wallet integration to have Sovryn's lending and earning interest on Bitcoin offered on that wallet, which is exciting. And we're working out a deal with a market maker for market making services on the Sovryn DEX, as well as future centralized exchange listings. And yeah, we're currently redlining their agreement. That's mostly it from me. And we have some time left for questions on everything that has been discussed, or anything that hasn't been discussed yet. So the floor is open, Sovryns.
I'd just like to make one clarification. It's the evidence period that will be ending in about 7 hours on Claros, and then arbitration starts after that.
Hey, Sovereign team. Just curious if there are any liquidity mining rewards programs to be announced anytime soon. I know that both programs have ended and were obviously very successful. Just curious about some upcoming. I'm sure the community wants to hear.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be a wave of opportunity very, very soon. There's a gap right now. We didn't want to use the old liquidity mining system again. Too centralized, too confusing, and in any event, it was only supposed to be used once as an experiment. Experiment was extremely successful. Everyone who participated made bucketloads of money. Next one, I think, will be even more successful in terms of the users participating, but also in terms of what it can drive for the system. So to give you guys a sense of what I think is coming very, very soon, I expect we will soon have ETH BTC trading. I expect we will soon have Babelfish allowing for an aggregated USD pair against basically anything. I mean, anything, any token that exists in our system can be traded against any other token. And then I expect we will start to ramp up any other token. And then I expect we will start to ramp up lending, borrowing on Bitcoin and all other assets. And then very, very shortly after that, we'll be in a position to start allowing margin trading on effectively all of these assets. So the pools that I think you should expect, we're going to be looking, everything trades against Bitcoin in Sovryn. So there's going to be plenty of space to bring your Bitcoins in, lend them out, borrow them, or place them into AMM pools. We're going to have what is looking to be a pretty aggressive push on the SOVBTC pool. There's going to be liquidity mining around new assets like money on chain, MOC, DOC, and stable coins. If the fish SIP passes, the Babelfish SIP passes, then fish as well will, once it's launched on the Origins platform, join. But in the very, very near future, I expect that you guys who want to participate in liquidity mining will want to get your hands on some ETH that you can bring over the bridge and stable coins that you can bring over the bridge.
Thanks, Iago.
One other thing I actually want to mention, we've got a few dark horse systems being built into the system as well. One is as we are ramping up the margin trading. So I think our confidence in the margin trading system is substantially higher. We've seen millions of dollars in margin trades happen over the last couple of weeks, and they've been improving, and I think they're going to continue improving as liquidity improves in the system. So one of the tools that we're doing in that trading. So if you like trading, this is about to become the best platform in the world to do it. And then the other dark horse is affiliate and referral marketing. We built a decentralized affiliate and referral system, which is currently in testing. And that will become an additional way in which you can share the gift of sovereignty with your friends and make money doing it.
Any last comments on the SIPs? Maybe to just get a feel for it, who intends on voting for the SIPs? Who intends on voting against the SIPs?
You can't see it, Ingemar, but everyone's raised their. You can't see it, Ingemar, but everyone's raised their.
Voting with their feet. All right. So we can end this early if there are no more questions on the SIPs or.
What? Missed it.
So yeah, I'll just close this out. Thank you guys for joining this call. Your support makes all the hard work worthwhile. Who we are is a collective who is carving out a trail of financial freedom, dismantling what people know and understand about money. So help us spread the word and create more sovereign individuals.
Can I just
Oh,
ask?
sure. Go for it.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason why we should not, why we are not allowed to use SOV to trade for Beverfish token?
When the bull market ends, let's say.
Or would that be possible in the near future?
That's a good question. Yago, would you like to answer that? Actually, I don't think he's here. So at the
And I think
moment,
this was more a question for Dark Knight, maybe, because Dark Knight is here, I think.
Sure. Yes, at the moment, just, there's higher liquidity for our BTC, and that's also where we will be providing some of the fish to create the initial liquidity for the decentralized automated market maker. So not for the foreseeable future, as SOV becomes more liquid over time, which honestly, I don't have much more liquidity with our BTC.
Thank you very much.
all right. Any final questions? We got a couple of minutes left.
Guys, I'm just curious what the motivation behind having margin trading behind SOV is. I mean, obviously, okay, I get it. If somebody wants to go, extra long or short, but like, I guess my concern is that I just worry a little bit about the fact that the main governance token, behind the whole system. Do we really want margin trading behind that? I mean, obviously, if the team is, bringing it forward, they must have really thought about it. But I'm just curious to get, everyone's thoughts on that. Especially if SOV is ever going to be used as some sort of collateral for lending in the future. I just worry that, perhaps manipulation could be a factor. As an SOV, community, volunteer, I'm just curious about the overall health of SOV, and I'm just wondering what the motivation behind having that as a marginable trade.
I guess if we don't, someone else will, right?
Right, I think at some point it will be possible to do that with SOV. But yeah, I think it's right. We definitely want to be the first. I think your concerns are appropriate. Yes, of course. We do not really know how this will affect the token price, so it's going to be an experiment in a way, which should be well thought through. And I'm happy to have a discussion about that with whoever is interested and core team members and whoever, just to speak about the possible implications before we launch something like that. I wanted to just clarify one thing about the question which was previously asked, and that's even if there is no fish SOV pool itself, fish would be tradable with SOV because all of our pools are connected with the swap network. So you can trade any token in the system against any other token. So there's no problem with directly exchanging SOV and fish. It's just that when you're providing liquidity, one of the sides will need to be Bitcoin. So you cannot provide the second side of the liquidity with SOV.
One last question that Whipper just reminded me of with his question is, or a request, big request, to be able to long or short Bitcoin without leverage. Because right now I have to do at least 2 times leverage, and it would be more long. Because then you can, if you think you know which way price is going, you can make more, but without leverage. Yeah.
You think you would just want to go one time short Bitcoin? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, or long for that matter. But yeah.
Well, I mean, one time long is the same as just holding Bitcoin, so it doesn't make sense to have a one time long trade. but a one-time short is something which makes sense, which we're currently not having due to the way the smart contracts are constructed. It's not possible without a smart contract change, and at the moment we're working very hard on the Solidity side and so many different features and things we're going to add that we do not have the spare capacity to allow for a 1x short at this point, but if the demand from the community is becoming loud, that you guys want to have that feature and it's important to you, then we can rearrange our priorities, of course.